We're live. What's good, Ohio Cannabis Report? It's your boy Gerald Moore Jr. tapping in with a quick episode. I'm just going to go over a few lines of the SB 56 legislative analysis, the final analysis that just shows what exactly SB 56 is and what it does for obviously the cannabis community. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk on chatter online, news, basically reporting what has been done to the Ohio cannabis laws. And so I just want to give you guys the source of these concerns with the legislative analysis. So here it is. You can go to legislature.ohio.gov/download !key equal 27450. This is online. Literally just type in SB 56 legislative analysis. And you can check this page out. Let me see. And all I did was go to final analysis, right? So right here. And so, as you can see, SB 56, 136 General Assembly, primary sponsor, Senator Huffman, effective date March 20th, 2026, operating appropriations effective December 19th, 2025. So here's the overview. Summary: repeals the cannabis control law and combines regulations concerning the cultivation, processing, dispensing, use, and home grow of adult use and medical marijuana into one chapter referred to in the analysis as the Marijuana Control Law, condenses the operations of the Division of Cannabis Control, DCC, and the Division of Marijuana Control, DMC, into the DCC. Product regulations prohibits possession or use of marijuana that is not required from a licensed Ohio dispensary or cultivated at the adult use consumer's primary residence in accordance with the Marijuana Control Law. Eliminates DCC's authority to approve new forms of adult use marijuana. Prohibits adult use and medical marijuana, and whole time, like, cannabis and marijuana are not the same thing, by the way. That is attractive to children or bears the likeness or characteristics of a realistic or fictional human, animal, or fruit. Reduces allowable THC levels in adult use marijuana extracts from a maximum of 90% or more to a maximum of 70%. Removes DCC's authority to eliminate THC limits for adult use marijuana products. Allows DCC to increase THC limits for adult use and medical marijuana extracts. Allows DCC to adopt rules establishing content limits for adult use and medical marijuana by serving or per package. Prohibits a licensed dispensary from dispensing or selling more adult use marijuana than can be legally possessed to the same adult use consumer in the same day. Requires adult use marijuana products to be packaged and labeled with certain information and warning. Adds pre-rolled marijuana products as an allowable form of adult use marijuana. Allows adult use consumers to transfer up to 2.5 ounces of plant material or 15 grams of extracts to another adult use consumer if the transfer takes place at a private residence and without remuneration. Home grow maintains existing limitations on the number of home grow plants, 6 per adult, 12 per residence, but applies a criminal penalty against a person who exceeds the limits by any amount of plants, as opposed to double the limits. Prohibits cultivating home grow marijuana at a child care home, halfway house, community transitional housing facility, community residential center, or a residential premises occupied pursuant to a rental agreement that prohibits home grow. Prohibits cultivating, growing, and possessing homegrown marijuana on behalf of another person, adult use consumers. Specifies that the possession limits do not apply to seeds, live plants, or clones being cultivated, grown, or possessed in accordance with the home grow law. Makes changes regarding possession and transfer requirements and limitations regarding adult use and homegrown marijuana. Requires edible adult use and medical marijuana to be stored in its original packaging when not in use. Requires adult use, medical, and homegrown marijuana and marijuana paraphernalia to be transported in the trunk or behind the back row of seats in a place not easily accessible to the driver. Prohibits the possession or use of marijuana paraphernalia that is not approved by DCC rules. Specifies that the smoking, combustion, and vaporization of adult use and homegrown marijuana and vaporization and in public places, smoking and combustion of medical marijuana is prohibited in a public place of public employment, a private residence that is a child care home, a halfway house, or a residential premises occupied pursuant to a rental agreement that prohibits such activities. Applies elevated penalties to persons who smoke, combust, or vapor marijuana in a vehicle, streetcar, trackless trolley, watercraft, or aircraft. Enhances the criminal and administrative penalties for persons who knowingly distribute adult use or homegrown marijuana to a person under 21 years of age. Licensing combines the adult use and medical marijuana licenses and requires licensed cultivators, processors, dispensaries, and laboratories to work with both adult use and medical marijuana. Modifies the eligibility criteria for licensure and requires DCC to rank applicants that meet those criteria using an impartial and evidence-based process according to the eligibility, suitability, and ability to operate. Requires DCC, if it uses a lottery system, to issue licenses to assign better odds to applicants that are highly rated under the rankings process. Specifies that 10B licenses issued under the Cannabis Control Law before March 20th, 2026 are subject to all procedures, requirements, and penalties that apply to the equivalent license under the Marijuana Control Law. Requires DCC to merge equivalent licenses issued to the same person and used at the same location. Eliminates level 3 adult use cultivator licenses. This was a big one that nobody's really talking about. That's like your craft licenses for smaller growers. Modifies the setback requirements concerning the location or relocation of dispensaries, cultivators, processors, and laboratories in relation to churches, schools, public libraries, public parks, and public playgrounds. Repeals the prohibition against dispensaries providing samples of adult use marijuana products. Allows DCC to prohibit advertising that are false, targeted to minors, attractive to minors, promotes excessive use, promotes illegal activity or obscene or indecent, contains depictions of marijuana use, or promote marijuana as an intoxicant. Requires DCC's rules concerning advertisement of adult use marijuana products to be no less stringent than the most stringent rules or laws regulating tobacco or alcohol advertising. Prohibits adult use in medical marijuana products from being marketed using a graphic picture or drawing that bears any resemblance to a cartoon character or popular figure whose target audience is children or youth. Requires pre-approval by DCC of name, logos, signs, or materials used to advertise adult use or medical marijuana. Prohibits advertisements asserting or suggesting that adult use marijuana has any health or therapeutic benefits. Prohibits marijuana advertisements within 500 feet of a school, church, public library, public playground, or public park, but exempts signage on the facility of the license holder. Cultivators, processors, and dispensaries. Requires DCC to issue 2 types of cultivation licenses, a level 1 license that authorizes a cultivation area of up to 100,000 square feet, and a level 2 license that authorizes a cultivation area of 15,000 square feet. Allows DCC to expand the cultivation area of a license holder that was not allotted the maximum cultivation area so long as the total cultivation area does not exceed that of the maximum square footage. Modifies the permitted activities that a processor may perform to cover both adult use and medical marijuana. Specifies that dispensaries can only accept government-issued identification as proof of identity of the registered patient or caregiver or the age of an adult use consumer. Allows DCC to revoke a provisional dispensary license if the license holder does not obtain a certificate of operation within 18 months. Caps the number of active dispensaries at 400 for the state. Requires DCC to issue dispensary licenses in a way that prevents oversaturation and to refrain from issuing a license for a facility that is within 1 mile of another dispensary, prohibits DCC from issuing a license or approving a relocation to a location or facility for which a permit to sell beer or intoxicating liquor has been issued, prohibits transferring a provisional license. Cannabis misuse prevention retains and recodifies the law requiring DCC to contract with a statewide nonprofit corporation for the development and implementation of a cannabis and related drug misuse prevention, education, and public awareness initiatives. They're probably going to use OCAN for that, Ohio Cannabis Coalition. Employment when licensed with a license holder eliminates the requirement that a person seeking employment with an adult use marijuana business obtain a license from DCC. Requires such a person to complete the same background check required for employees of medical marijuana businesses under continuing law. Specifies the criminal offense that disqualifies an individual from employment with a license holder are those identified by DCC and rules. Requires DCC to establish standards for provisional employment of individuals who have exigent circumstances for the period in which the individual's background check is pending. Administration vetoed part. So this was vetoed. Eliminates DCC's authority to adopt rules that impose, among other things, requirements concerning technical standards for security and surveillance equipment, changes in ownership or control of license holders, and educating the public about marijuana. Specifies that rules adopted under the Cannabis Control Law before March 20th, 2026 remain in effect until repealed or amended by DCC. Requires DCC to adopt rules prohibiting gifts, samples, or other free or discounted goods or services to induce or reward a license holder for business or referrals. Requires DCC by rule to establish standards and procedures for the online and mobile ordering for adult use of medical marijuana. Requires DCC by rule to establish standards for the delivery of medical marijuana. Maintains the medical marijuana law requirement that DCC adopts rules specifying which offenses disqualify an individual from qualifying for a license under the marijuana control law. Would have required those rules to specify at a minimum that any felony offense disqualifies an individual from holding a license under the marijuana control law. Vetoed. Authorized the Legislative Service Commission to renumber rules adopted under the Cannabis Control Law to account for its consolidation with the Medical Marijuana Control Law. Specifies the rules pending before the Common Sense Initiative or the Joint Committee on Agency Rule review on March 20th, 2026 are considered to be proposed under the Marijuana Control Law. Exempts DCC rules from continuing law requirements concerning reduction of regulatory restrictions on March 20th, 2027, allows the Ohio Investigative Unit, OIU, within the Department of Public Safety to assist DCC in enforcing the marijuana control law, modifies the criminal penalties imposed on persons who violate the marijuana control law, name, image, and likeness, NIL deals, expands the authority of institutions of higher education to prohibit students from entering into certain name, image, and likeness NIL deals.